What does it take to wake a sleeping giant? How does a nation, completely isolated by two vast oceans, suddenly find itself thrust into the deadliest conflict in human history? Picture this. It is a quiet Sunday morning on the remote island of Oahu, December 7th, 1941. The Hawaiian sun is just rising over the lush, green mountains. Thousands of American sailors and soldiers are sleeping in, getting ready for church or having a quiet cup of coffee. The United States Pacific Fleet is at peace. But just over the horizon, hidden beneath a blanket of heavy clouds, an unprecedented storm of steel and fire is hurtling toward them. In less than 2 hours, this peaceful island will burn. Over 2,000 Americans will die, and the course of the 20th century will change forever. Half a world away, the Empire of Japan was on the march. Desperate for oil and resources to fuel its brutal war in China, Japan had its eyes on the rich territories of Southeast Asia. But there was one massive obstacle standing in their way: the United States Pacific Fleet, stationed right in the middle of the ocean at Pearl Harbor. The Japanese High Command knew they couldn't win a drawn-out war against American industrial might. Their only hope was a knockout blow, a surprise attack so devastating that it would permanently cripple the U.S. Navy and force America to negotiate. For weeks, a massive Japanese armada, including 6 aircraft carriers, had maintained strict radio silence, creeping across the treacherous, stormy waters of the North Pacific. They were completely undetected. Back on Oahu, there were warnings. Early that morning, a brand new radar station at Opana Point picked up a massive swarm of aircraft approaching from the north. The operators reported it, but a young, inexperienced lieutenant dismissed it, assuming it was just a scheduled flight of American B-17 bombers flying in from the mainland. It was a fatal, catastrophic miscalculation. At 7:55 a.m., the storm broke. The peaceful Sunday morning was shattered by the scream of diving aircraft and the deafening roar of explosions. Tora, 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 the Japanese code phrase for achieving complete surprise, echoed back to the enemy fleet. Hundreds of Japanese Zero fighters, Val dive bombers, and Kate torpedo bombers swarmed the island. They didn't just target the ships, they hit the airfields, destroying hundreds of American planes on the ground before they could even take off. The primary target, however, was Battleship Row. 7 mighty American battleships were moored side by side, sitting ducks in the shallow harbor. Torpedoes ripped into the hulls of the Oklahoma and the West Virginia. But the most horrifying moment of the morning belonged to the USS Arizona. An armor-piercing bomb crashed through its deck and ignited its forward ammunition magazine. The massive explosion lifted the 30,000-ton battleship out of the water, killing 1,177 men in a single, fiery instant. The harbor was instantly transformed into an apocalyptic nightmare of choking black smoke, burning oil, and sinking giants. Amidst the unimaginable chaos and carnage, incredible acts of heroism unfolded. Men who had been asleep minutes before were suddenly manning anti-aircraft guns in their pajamas. Mess attendant Doris Miller, who had never been trained to fire a weapon, took control of a .50 caliber machine gun and fired back at the swarm of planes until his ammunition ran out. A handful of American pilots managed to get their fighters off the ground and took the fight directly to the overwhelming Japanese force. By 10 a.m., it was over. The Japanese planes turned back toward their carriers, leaving behind a harbor choked with the dead and the dying. The United States Pacific Fleet was in ruins. 8 battleships were damaged or sunk, over 300 aircraft were destroyed, and 2,403 Americans had been killed. Admiral Yamamoto had achieved his tactical masterpiece. But strategically, he had just signed the death warrant of the Japanese Empire. The attackers had made 3 fatal mistakes. They failed to destroy the dry docks and repair facilities. They completely ignored the massive oil storage tanks, which held the lifeblood of the fleet. And most importantly, the 3 American aircraft carriers, the very ships that would decide the fate of the Pacific War, were not in the harbor that morning. Japan didn't cripple America, they united it. The attack vanished every ounce of American isolationism in a single morning. The very next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared it a date which will live in infamy, and the United States officially entered World War II. Japan had unleashed a fury they could not comprehend. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and that giant was now rising, armed to the teeth and looking for vengeance. If you enjoyed this insight, support the channel by hitting that subscribe button. Let's shape our next video based on your ideas. Which historical moments are you curious about? Let me know in the comments below.